Yesterday, we talked a bit about how to differentiate between the different elements as it manifests in each of us, like personality-wise. So just a quick review, like wood, for example, quintessential wood is kind of the ultra-competitive, the athlete person. Um, and fire is kind of more spontaneous, someone who leads by their heart, literally. Um, so an artist might be someone that you could sort of think of when you think of fire, someone who's very creative, someone who's more spontaneous. Um, and then the next element, earth. When we think about earth people, we look at someone who's like someone who takes care of everybody. For example, like a Mother Earth kind of personality. And then metal. Metal, we look at someone who it's like a scientist, someone who's more by the numbers, maybe a little bit more aloof, someone who's more logic oriented, someone who's more striving for perfection. And then the fifth one, the fifth element, water. Water, we look at someone who's like a philosopher, someone who's more thinking about the bigger picture, some of the philosophical things in life. Why do we exist? What's the meaning of life? Those are the questions that someone who has a lot of water ponders. So with that in mind, not all of us are these things. And I do want to suggest that, we're not striving to have an equal amount of each element, just like we're not trying to strive to have an equal amount of yin and yang at all times. Remember that S curve I talked about with yin and yang? Sometimes the balance with yin and yang is 60-40, sometimes it's 20-80, sometimes it's 90-10, and sometimes it's 50-50. But you really have to be in the moment to understand what's right for you at a particular time. Similarly with the five elements, is sometimes you want to bring out your water, you want to have that wisdom, and sometimes you want to be spontaneous, and sometimes you want to just get things done. So within each of us, there are moments that we see that element manifest, and some of us it's harder to connect with certain elements than others. Some of us find it a lot easier to be creative. Some of us find it a lot easier to maybe just focus in on a task and get things done. And other people may have the exact opposite, where they have trouble being spontaneous. They have trouble getting focused and getting down and getting to work for whatever reason. So understanding where you are with your elements will help you figure out how to move forward, right? So one of the things that we look at when we look at how do we figure out how to help ourselves and help other people too, is to look at how we can sort of feed these elements, like how to make one stronger and one weaker. Part of it is just understanding things from a five element perspective. So that's what we've been trying to learn these past few weeks, is understanding how five element works, how does it break down, how does it manifest, and now we can look at, well, how do we treat this? So in Chinese medicine, like if you're coming to my office and we diagnosed you, one of the ways that I diagnose is based on five elements and seeing like, well, what element are you weak in? What element are you maybe in excess of? So that we can help figure out what the balance is to help you on a healing path. Now, for those of you who are just here, you may not have like a medical condition. It may not be that serious, but you still want to kind of know, what can you do to sort of help be more effective, or to help you accomplish certain things in your life, right? So like some of you might say, well, I just have trouble getting focused. Well, you probably need more wood if you want to do that. So how do we generate more wood? Right? One idea, one way to generate more wood is to really hang out with people who have a lot of wood, and that kind of rubs off on you. It's the same thing with all the other elements. Is if you're weak in that element, if you're weak in fire, if you're weak in metal, if you want to be more perfectionistic or have like maybe a higher quality of what you do, maybe you hang out with more metal people. If you want more sagely advice, maybe you want to kind of figure out what the meaning of life is, well, hang out with more water people. Okay, so on one hand, you can find people like that, connect with them, make friends with them, and sort of have that element rub off and sort of see what they do, and you can sort of copy and mimic what they do. Um, on the other hand, you can also look at what we say is the generating cycle. Okay, so if you're weak in one element, we look at generating cycle. And what the generating cycle means is that, there's a cycle of the 5 elements. So it starts with wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. Okay, so the element that comes before is the one that generates the one that follows. So for example, if you need more wood, you would go to the element before, which would be water. Okay, so you would want to generate more water to generate more wood. So you don't always just work with, like what I said earlier was, if you're weak in wood, you can generate more wood to make more wood, but you can also generate more water to make more wood. So there's 2 strategies you can go to do this if you're weak in the element. So what does that mean? Like so I'll give you an example. Okay, so wood is about focus, is about getting things done. And in order to do that, right, one of the things you look at is purpose, right? There's a lot of people that talk about, in order to really, hone in on something, you really need to know what your reason is behind what you're doing. If you don't have a good reason, at some point you're going to be like, well, this doesn't have any meaning to me. Why am I focused on doing this thing? Right? So you need that water, you need that wisdom. So you need to sort of meditate, you need to connect with yourself. And that's more of the water aspect to fuel your wood. So actually, generating more of that water helps you focus, because then you find a purpose in your life. And I find that to be really true in my life, because I've gone through several times in my life where, I lost focus and, something bad happens, a big, downturn in the cycle. Even now we're kind of struggling, right? A little bit with like stress and there's a lot of things going on and a lot of uncertainty. But once you find your purpose that's internal to you, okay, you're going to have a new sense of focus. So I would suggest, that's one strategy. I hope that makes sense to you. Similarly, let's take a look at fire, right? So fire element is all about spontaneity, but it can burn itself out if you're leading by your heart all the time. Okay, some of you may have trouble doing that. Wood helps you focus and helps ignite that fire. So when we look at the emotions of wood, it's anger and passion, right? So if you're able to really connect with that passion, really connect with that anger, it not only gets you more focused, it also allows you to really ignite your fire, really feel that burn, like this big ball of fire just explodes. So you can sort of ignite it that way. And the wood provides fuel for the fire. So, if you're able to generate some sparks, but you don't have a lot of wood, or what we say fuel, then it's going to be a very short-lived fire. So that's why, in order to have good fire, you also need to have good wood behind it. And similarly with the other elements. So this is about the generating cycle. I just want to pull up a chart real quick so you understand visually what I'm talking about. So we're going to go back to. So this is the chart, just to give you a quick reminder of how this works. Is with the wood, right? So this is generating cycle going clockwise here. Fire, earth, metal, water. So you look at not just the element that you want to maybe have more energy in, but you want to look at the element before that. So that's why I really love the 5 elements. This is a really good way to sort of step back and understand perhaps what you can do. Now, I want to remind you that, we can't all be all elements at all the time. We have certain gifts, and you really want to be able to accept and utilize those gifts. So don't always try to do something that's really not in your wheelhouse. With Qigong, we're trying to connect with what our gifts are, and each of us, that's different. So, the goal is not to have an even amount of all the elements. It's really like if your gift is wood, but a lot of people don't use their gifts, right? A lot of times in life, we're trying to be someone else. And then it takes time like I'm a late bloomer, so it took time for me to really understand what my gifts were and to accept them and to use them. So I really recommend that don't look at this as you're trying to get 20% equally of all the elements, right? You want to sort of uncover what are your gifts. Maybe your gift is fire, but you haven't been using that fire. Or maybe your gift is water, but you haven't been using that water. So you really want to be able to accept that and connect with that and use that. Okay, so that's I think enough chit chat for today. Thank you for sticking around and joining us. We'll be talking more about this in the coming days. If you have any questions, if you want me to focus on certain things to talk about, I'd love to do that too. So just private message me or send me an email. But thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow, 8:15.